Minor Hotels is our parent company. 560 hotels worldwide. We also have a food business. So you've heard of the Coffee Club in Australia. Mm-hmm. We own the Coffee Club.
So I'm joined today by Russell Cool, Director of Franchising for the Minor Hotel Group. Thank you for joining us today, Russell.
Great to be here, Syd.
Tell us a bit about Russell Cool. What's your background and how have you come to work for Oaks or Minor Group?
Okay. Look, it's a long story. I'll cut it down to a fairly short one, though. 30 years I've been doing this. I grew up on the Gold Coast, so I started my hotel journey at the Park Royal Surfers Paradise.
Oh, wow.
Way back in 1997. So prior to that, I came up through the food and beverage ranks. Over the course of many years, I've moved around the world. I've been through China, Shanghai, Beijing, Hong Kong, Sri Lanka, and then all over the countryside in Australia here. So, a diverse background. I started management rights in 2003. That was my first GM role at the Seabull Resort in Coffs Harbour. So that was an interesting start to my career and from a management standpoint. And then over the course of time, I've worked in a variety of roles from a managed rights standpoint. Oaks Hotels, Resorts and Suites. The Seabull, as I mentioned, Key West is another brand, and then Minor Hotels before, and I've come back again. So this is my second stint with Minor Hotels now.
Wow! In my seat, it sounds like you're slightly overqualified for what you're doing at the moment, but no doubt you're an asset to the Minor Group. So fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Tell us what it means to be a franchise owner under the Oaks brand.
I guess from an owner standpoint, as a franchisee under Oaks, you're an owner of an international hotel.
Right.
There's not too many people that can turn around and say, I own an international hotel. Under a franchise, we'll put our brand on the door and we'll support the franchisee or the owner in driving that top line business to them and saving their bottom line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
what types of properties and potential sort of locations do franchise options typically work in? Is there a certain demographic or a certain zone that it might sort of fit better than others?
Well, the beauty of Oaks, we have there's a flexibility within the brand, and that's why we have Oaks Hotels, Resorts and Suites. So they're designed to be able to be flexed left and right depending on what the need is. We have inner city properties, 300-room inner city urban properties that have a big corporate mix as well as a leisure. Then you've got our resorts products, and they sit on the coastlines, everywhere from Lura to Sunshine Coast and in between. And then we have our suites, which is our apartment style, which is very suited to the MLR space, those serviced apartment business. So it's quite a flexible arrangement, and I guess because of that, we can sit in any market and any market segment.
Yeah, right. So typically as a business owner, you like to sort of have that sense of control and that sense of, well, this is my baby and that kind of stuff. How does Oaks support that operator independence and their natural growth in the industry as a franchise owner?
Well, look, Oaks has a bit of a tagline for that MLR. It's your business, our support.
Right.
So we're not here to run your business. We're here to support your business. So tapping into Oaks gives you that distribution, global distribution, local distribution, websites, marketing, training, development. Yeah. So all of that sits in there. So there's a lot of support, but we're not there to run your business.
Yeah. You've touched on it briefly. Let's talk about the systems and the tools that might be accessible and available to an operator looking to, that growth into untapped markets. Yeah. How does an operator get access, and what are some of the things they can expect when they come in and be a franchise operator?
Well, there's a lot of systems, and we're in the digital age, so everything connects. So that's the most important part. From our standpoint, tapping into our website, that's the window to the world, if you like. Yeah. And then that loyalty program that comes with that. We have 2.2 million members here in Australia under our loyalty and 30 million worldwide.
Wow.
So there's that. Our PMS, it all connects into the global distribution system. So a travel agent sitting in, say, New York can go on, automatically see an Oaks product and book through the GDS. So that comes through. So that connectivity is the most important part. Our national sales, we have over 26 people in our national and group sales team. So here in Australia. So, and, that allows those salespeople to go and knock on doors that potentially an independent operator couldn't access.
Yeah.
And you think about large consortia or TMC companies, travel management companies, and large corporates. They don't want the 4,500 schemes of MLR that I believe are in Australia at the moment. They don't want all of them knocking on their door.
Mm-hmm.
So the value and the power of Oaks is that one person can go knock on that door and be the representative for 60, 70, 80 hotels and drive that business there.
Well, let's boil it down to its essence. What is it that, the bottom line, the growth, the revenue generation, some of the things that an operator can expect by aligning themselves successfully with Oaks? Can they expect to see, large ADR increases or occupancy rate increases over a short period of time, or is it more of a sustained longevity kind of setup?
Yes, probably a bit of both. If I can sort of broadly touch on that, it's when you tap into Oaks, you're tapping into a market that potentially the independent operator hasn't yet got into.
Right.
As I said, I mentioned travel management companies, sporting groups, corporates, general leisure groups. There's a lot of companies out there that do a lot of these activities, and an independent operator sitting on the Gold Coast or Sunshine Coast is probably not going to have the access that we have access to. But like anything, we tap into that market. We drive demand. Demand drives rate. And I can't sit here and say we're going to automatically increase your occupancy and your rate at the same time. It might be an increase in occupancy and then rate follows. But over the course of time, you'd expect greater demand equals greater rate equals greater return.
We'll talk about OTA rates. We talk about procurement. We talk about buying power, that kind of stuff. How can Oaks influence a profit growth and upward trajectory for an operator by aligning?
Absolutely. Well, let's just touch on the OTAs. Booking.com, as an example, is the largest OTA. I think it's about 70% of the world's market share. So they're big. So if you're a business sitting on the Gold Coast, for instance, and you drive $1 million a year through Booking.com, if you're a 30% commission, that's $300,000 on the same piece of business. So before we've done anything in terms of driving demand, rate, diversified mix of business, we can save you 180 grand on that scenario. So that's significant. From a procurement standpoint, obviously, we have 70 hotels. We also have minor DKL, and I should probably touch on minor. Minor Hotels is our parent company. 560 hotels worldwide. We also have a food business. So you've heard of the Coffee Club in Australia. We own the Coffee Club. We own Benihana. We own Dairy Queen. So we own a lot of different things. So our buying power from a food and beverage standpoint is huge. But we also have that buying power from our consumables, wet amenities, toilet paper, tissue. We get considerable savings. And then the piece de resistance, if I can say that, is our insurance. We access our company globally, or particularly here in Australia. We have a lot of buildings. We have a lot of insurance. So we have a lot of buying power in that insurance space. We can access that insurance where potentially a independent operator who has to have their industrial special risk and all those insurances there, they won't get nearly the same discounts or buying power that we get. So they can fall under our umbrella as well.
You said Coffee Club there before. I might have to talk to you about after this, by getting some shares in the minor group, because that sounds like music to my ears at the moment. But let's talk about the types of training and support from the onboarding process for an operator coming in, purchasing, and aligning with Oaks Hotels. What are some of the expectations or the training support that a potential operator can expect?
Well, we have a lot of, as I said earlier, we have a lot of systems that we connect to. We do all of that because all our systems are centralized. So we'll connect the property to those systems. So the franchisee and the owner don't have to do much in that regard. We will then train them on those systems, and that's the most important part: understanding how the systems work and then being trained on them. And that just doesn't stop the moment they turn on. Then obviously there's the ongoing operational support. Again, I don't operate your business, but I'll provide guidance and support around our brand standards, because let's be honest, people come to Oaks because they recognise the brand. and they want those standards in place in every Oaks they go to.
Would someone typically have a key contact or an account manager that they
Absolutely.
can phone and ask, problem solve?
Absolutely. So there's 13 in our support team for the franchisees, led by me.
Yeah.
So I'm the key contact for all our franchisees. I will then, and we have systems that support that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a phone call. We have what we call a franchise concierge.
Okay.
So all our franchisees can access that and get the information they need. If they need to raise what we call a ticket because there's an issue of some form, they raise that ticket, and one of the 13 will automatically apply and resolve whatever the issue is.
One of the big issues that operators typically face in the holiday space is that repeat business and that return guest and that experience that you've got a client or a guest for life. What are some of the things that Oaks might focus on to win that trust in the marketplace that can then flow on to an operator?
Yeah, look, I think our loyalty for a start, I mean, people want the benefits. And you think about loyalty globally, and whether that be airlines or hotels, that people want to know that they're getting something in return for that loyalty. So our loyalty program, we call it Minor Discovery through our Global Hotel Alliance. So it's, as I said, 30 million worldwide. So that loyalty provides benefits and return benefits to that guest. So we call them discovery dollars. Right. So they can then use that money over the course of time when they stay. Yep. They can use that money to then pay for future stays, and not just in that one hotel that they've utilised over and over again across the 70 hotels, Australia, New Zealand wide. So it's a push and pull. You give us, we give you, and that return is there that's a benefit to them. The way Oaks leverage that is every hotel contributes to sign out those guests. Okay. And often we see you might be Oaks, say in Charlotte Street in Brisbane, but you want to go and stay at Oaks in Toowoomba. You might sign up at Charlotte, but you stay at Oaks Toowoomba, and you get that benefit there. Right. So the benefit's smooth and seamless across all our properties.
Fantastic. We've mentioned, or you mentioned before earlier about the sales team, the national. You're at 26, I believe, across the country in Australia, which is a huge tick for me. What are some of the services that they can provide day to day to an operator in the coalface, dealing with guests? What can value add do they have on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. I guess, the greatest value, if I can use the recent cyclones as an example. We have 11 hotels in Brisbane, several on the Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast. The cyclone Alfred wiped about $1 million worth of business out of those hotels over that period. Right. We were almost be able to replace it immediately through SES and insurance providers because of our contacts, our national sales teams. Because, as I said to you earlier, the independent operator is not going to get access to all these people because they don't want to deal with 4,500 people. They want to deal with one. So we will then go out and say, hey, we've got hotels here that can support SES and emergency services and any displaced guests. Yourself, you were displaced, right? So still am. So that's where the value really comes into our national sales, is because we're able to tap into that and immediately replace a lot of business with different business, but replace it nonetheless.
So you've got a background in hotels being your bread and butter. What is it that draws you to this space, and how do you think you can drive the industry forward by putting the brand behind it? We have been, I guess, an advocate for managed letting rights. We're, as I said, one of the biggest suppliers around there. The brand of Oaks, again, consumers these days are looking for consistency. They want to know that they're getting quality of product and quality of service. And that's where Oaks comes into it. We, in a managed letting rights space, we understand the pros and cons and the pitfalls of running management rights, and then how that relates to the guest that's coming to stay, because often these properties are mixed-use buildings. Yeah. So they have both residential and short-term letting. So we understand how that works and the intricacies around that and dealing with that. So our procedures and our process are centred around making sure that we can assimilate seamlessly with any building that we're in. Right. Because that's an important part, that relationship piece with your body corporate committees, your tenants. It's important. It's very important because it's a big family and you're all in one space. Yeah, no, absolutely. What is it that you see being special about this space, and where do you see the management rights space headed? Do you see enormous growth? Do you see this this euphoric kind of experience coming in the next 10, 15, 20 years. Do you see it as a resilient space?
Yes, I do. I see it growing, and you only have to look at the skyline of the Gold Coast as an example to see what's happening there. I mean, there's management rights businesses coming left, right, and centre, and you're better equipped to understand that more than I am. We see that as an opportunity because with the 310,000 units under management in the management rights space, that's a relatively untapped market from a branding standpoint. We like to think that our brand can help deliver performance for our hotels, and we, as I've outlined already, driving top line, reducing your costs, driving profitability. That helps. If we can't, we're not going to get into it. We're not going to go and say on any particular business or any particular building that we're going to deliver that every time. Mm-hmm. We'll go in and assess it. So I see it continuing to grow because I think the housing crisis is a little impact on it. Mm-hmm. But certainly with managed rights and that short-term letting, there's a lot more inbound tourists coming into the country. Demand is growing. Obviously COVID slowed that down, but it's now starting to come back again. So we see a lot of opportunity there, and there's a lot of, from an asset class as well, that's helping.
Someone considering going down the franchise route, what kind of advice or potential support would you sort of add to their decision-making process? Why is it a good decision to consider being an Oaks franchisee?
Well, I guess probably, as I said earlier, it's probably not for everyone, but if they do go down the Oaks franchising path, it's a value add to that owner. That management rights is a difficult business to operate in. I guess there was a time where it was called the lifestyle job, right? But that lifestyle job is probably not as lifestyle.
It exists. It's absolutely a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle job. Good. But there's turnover of those management rights businesses all the time. And I guess if I look at it from a pure numbers standpoint, we'd like to think of, again, if I can improve your performance and your net profit, that's going to improve your multiplier, which is going to improve the value of your business. Yeah. So not only will that support and grow your performance and your income and your profitability whilst you're doing the job. Mm-hmm. If you choose 5-10 years down the track to move it on, it'll help with you in a sale process as well. That's our belief anyway.
We talk a lot about numbers, and obviously the proof is in the pudding, and numbers typically determine whether you've got growth, whether it's a good business opportunity or maybe run for the hills opportunity. But what are some of the key metrics that the Oaks Group might focus on to sort of determine whether it's a fit for your brand?
Absolutely. Well, we run a lot of metrics because we have a lot of systems. So, you obviously got your occupancy rates and your average daily rates. We look at it from a competitor standpoint as well. And I guess that's where the power of Oaks comes into its own. We measure through what they call STR, which is a global brand that measures performance of every hotel that subscribes. And there's a lot of them. So we measure our property performance individually and as a group compared to those competitors in that particular market.
It's a benchmark.
It's a benchmarking. Yeah. So if you work on 100 as the benchmark, our Australian portfolio for the full year 2024, ran at 107, so 7% above the comp set. Wow. Now, you probably think, 7%, that's not a great deal. Well, when you consider it, that's against like-for-like product. So that's branded products and those properties that sit in that branded space. We're 7% above that. As an independent coming into our portfolio, you might be well below the 100. So, it's hard for me to predict what that looks like, but when we come in, we will look at a whole lot of data. We'll look at it and go, all right, what is the potential competition? What's the potential competition coming? Yeah. And then we'll look at it and go, all right, this is what the market is achieving at that level of business, or at that level of, let's say 4, 5 star. Yeah. We measure it by mid-scale up or an upscale. Yeah. So that's what we look at, and then we'll come in and assess and go, all right, how are you trading? Where's your business mix? Yeah. I talked about OTAs before. A vast majority of independent operators, as I said, don't have access to a lot of, so they rely on OTAs. Mm-hmm. So they could have 75-80% of their business coming via an OTA at 15, 18, 20, 30% commission. Mm-hmm. If I can shift that mix to more coming through our brand.com, our direct sales. There will always be OTA. They're a powerhouse, but we diversify that mix. Not only do we reduce your commission costs, we actually drive your demand and your rate up. So it's an up and down scenario. That ideal business mix is what we look for. Because if something happens, you don't have all your eggs in one basket.
I understand. Yeah. So Russ, you mentioned at the very start, 4,000 sort of plus MLR, businesses in operation on Queensland or the east coast of Australia. Is there a particular target or postcode that might be more appealing than others? Potential, like is Queensland or is New South Wales, Central Coast? Is there an area that might be a focus for Oaks at the moment?
Not necessarily. I mean, we look for good locations, but we're also looking for properties that could potentially be a good location. So it's a build it and they shall come sort of thing sometimes as well, and those growth areas. Because we're looking, as I said, our data. We have a variety of data everywhere from Melbourne all the way out to North Queensland and in the middle, because we have that coverage in our properties. So we look at all that data. We're looking for opportunities. I couldn't put my hand on it and say, I'm just going to focus on the Gold Coast or Sunshine Coast or whatever, because that's quite saturated. There are opportunities outside of that. Hinterland properties, wherever we can add value, we will go. If we can't add value, we won't do it.
Right. Sales pitch. Give us a summary. Why, if I'm watching this today and I'm thinking, geez, I need to reach out to the Oaks Group and get more information on this. Summarise it and give us the best parts.
Okay, have a conversation. It can't hurt to have a call, have a conversation. There's no requirement to move after that. There's no obligation. If I can increase your revenue, decrease your costs, and increase your profitability, why wouldn't you have a chat?
Sounds like a winning formula, Russ. Thank you very much for your time today. It's been very enlightening. I really appreciate your time and effort.
Thanks, Sid. Cheers. Thank you.